Okay, it's really good to be with you all. The only downside of this right here is this is my last event after 3 wonderful days being in your country. So I have found out that it's pretty cool to spend the night in the castle. I really enjoyed that a lot. I could probably get used to that when I was up in Edinburgh. And I did help your economy quite a bit with buying a whole bunch of tweed while I've been here. But I've really enjoyed it, and I just want to start by thanking Patrick Saunders. Who's a good friend, and we have a really strong relationship between our armies. And I always tell everybody that everywhere I go, and have been over the last 20 years, I've always had somebody from the British Army side by side with us. Every deployment, every exercise, and that kind of continues. So Patrick, thank you for friendship and from all I've learned from you. So I also want to thank Russi. And I just had, I think Jack Watling was in here. I'd had him out, and I have a lot of respect for this organization because it makes the effort. I think to dig into the details and find out what's going on the ground, and then get that information out in a way that people understand it. And I think that that's critically important. So Matthew, I want to thank you. And I met Dr. Von Hippel here a little bit earlier, but just you and your whole staff and everything. So I'm going to I'm going to kind of go through some prepared remarks. I'm really looking forward to the questions and answers. I've been out to Tidworth. Like I mentioned, I spoke up in Edinburgh, and when I was on my note cards, I ran on a little bit. So it'll give us a little bit more time. You'll get the gist of kind of where I'm going and what we're doing, and want to give you a good sense of what the U.S. Army is doing. And I think that there's a lot of comparisons here between us and the British Army. And I'll just start with the world is the most dangerous that I've certainly seen it in my 36 years. And I always would talk about complex. I think it's been complex and always been complex. But I think it's more dangerous and volatile than I've seen it. And I think a spark in any region right now could have global impacts. There's clear cooperation between adversaries that we've seen in a long time, and those adversaries are blatantly challenging the rules-based world order. And nothing has made that clearer than when Russia launched its conventional assault on Ukraine just over 800 days ago. It has been over 80 years since we've seen tanks roll into a sovereign European nation with the aim of destroying it. We have to be ready. So we have reiterated to the U.S. Army, we're not a European army or a Pacific army, we're a global one. We must be ready to respond anywhere and at scale, and we must also be focused on improving our warfighting skills. And I've told our formations, if there's anything we're doing that is not making them more lethal or more cohesive as a team, then we should stop doing it. We should stop doing it. I also talked to them about land power because I think land power is as important as it's ever been to the joint fight. First, for deterrence, and I think even in the age of nuclear weapons, there's nothing like a professional, disciplined army at the gates. Second, because wars always last longer than we want, and they usually come down to a close fight, whether in the streets of Fallujah or on the mountaintops of the Falklands. I think the US and the UK need to be ready for that close fight, globally, but especially for UK right here in Europe. Third, because the Army provides precision long-range fires, which have proven to be effective, very hard to kill, and relatively inexpensive. Finally, the Army does a lot to support the joint team. We provide theater-level command and control, and no one can provide intelligence, air defense, and logistics at scale like we do in the Army. We do a lot. But we have to get better if we're going to continue to dominate the evolving battlefield. And we can't afford to change once in a generation or solely focus on waypoints like 2030 or 2040. Those dates are framed by our established processes and timelines necessary to understand, to navigate our system, but I don't really think that they should constrain us because we may not have that kind of time. Institutionally, we have to focus on how we can get better every day. And there are plenty of lessons that can be learned from today's conflicts, certainly from Ukraine's. First, on today's battlefield, there is no place to hide. Everything is a sensor. Satellites overhead, the phone in your pocket. Where we can see, we can hit, and the enemy can too. Second, cheap commercial tech can kill you just as well as military tech. And in many cases, it's evolving more rapidly. Third, war today often takes place in cities, and it likely will in the future as well. We have to be prepared for battle in dense urban environments. Finally, the battlefield today isn't local. It spans a globe because of long-range precision fires and capabilities in the cyber and space domain. And I can talk about lessons all day. But these are just lessons observed. They don't become lessons learned until we actually do something about them, until we change the way we train and fight, change the way we're structured, and change the way we equip. So we in the U.S. Army are moving out aggressively, and we've given the Army 4 focus areas. The first is warfighting, and I already mentioned this as a focus, but I'll reiterate, we have to look at what we can do to take off our commanders' plate so that they're really focused on the most important things that they should be doing. They should have what they need to be lethal and to build cohesive teams, and they shouldn't be weighed down by anything else. The second focus area is delivering ready combat formations. I've talked about how complex the battlefield is today, and it's really getting hard to get beans, bullets, and fuel where they need to go. So we're looking at how we do logistics in highly contested environments using additive manufacturing, unmanned systems, and telemaintenance, just to name a few. We are also building magazine depth. One of the lessons from Ukraine is certainly that we have the best weapons in the world, but if we run out of bullets, even the best weapons won't mean a damn. And I was going to translate that to won't do a bloody thing. So we have to have magazine depth. We're going to have bullets and ammo at scale. We also have to make sure our bases are power projection platforms, resilient to cyber, space, and air and missile threats. And we are empowering commanders on those bases to get their formations ready and ensure our families are properly cared for. Our third focus area is continuous transformation. I said before, we can't wait to evolve. We must transform continuously and iteratively. So we are making a lot of changes in our Army right now. For instance, we are working to fix our network, our number one priority. The U.S. Army, like the British Army, fights through mission command. That requires our commanders to have the right information at the right time on devices that are easy to use. So we are giving them devices that we all know well, tablets and phones, so they can command and control their battle space while managing their signature and staying mobile. We are also transforming in contact, leveraging downrange units to adapt faster by injecting them with cutting-edge tech and experimenting with new formations and concepts. Things like unmanned aerial systems, counter-UAS, EW, loitering munitions. These are changing so quickly that it's a cat and mouse game of development and counter-development. In just a matter of weeks, existing tech gets outpaced and becomes ineffective. So we are investing in modular, open architecture systems that can be iteratively updated and are software defined, and testing systems out with our units that are transforming in contact. And of course, we're investing in a number of other programs that will make us more lethal as well. Long-range precision fires like PRISM, integrated air and missile defense, next-generation squad weapon, and others. Finally, we are strengthening our profession, and there's a lot to do. There's a lot to this. But first and foremost, making sure we are enforcing standards and discipline. To paraphrase an old West Point superintendent, Lieutenant General John Schofield, discipline is what makes the soldiers of a free country reliable in battle. We are doing a lot, but there's a lot we still need to do, and change is hard, and I'm sure that's not a surprise to anybody in here. I recently read an article about the CEO of Ferrari who used a term he called bureaucracy mass index, or BMI. Every large organization has BMI, and we're in an era where we can't afford to ignore fixing it. Organizations like the US Army, perhaps the British Army, I'm sure a lot of big organizations struggle to change. There are a lot of stakeholders involved in any project, and stakeholders sometimes beget fiefdom that protect jobs or protect platforms, and there is often a lot of concern about sunk cost. But as leaders, it is our job to adjudicate those concerns and navigate those obstacles. I've found that if you want to change processes, it takes getting in the weeds and asking a lot of questions. And I know in the US Army, there's a lot of rocks worth turning over. Army regulations, for example, that are outdated and need rewriting, burdensome laws that warrant candid conversations with our Congress, and obsolete procedures that aren't necessarily codified, but we've been doing for so many years, we continue to do out of habit. So we are asking the questions and turning over the rocks because change does not take product innovation, it takes process innovation. So how do all of us fit in here? One thing I like to remind leaders is that something only each one of us can do for our team. And I think about this as the Chief of Staff of the Army, the things that I want to focus on. For example, talking to Congress that I need to do and drive process at my level because I know there's only certain things that I'm going to be able to do. And one really important thing for us is building relationships with our allies and partners, especially our closest friends. Because I know when the U.S. Army is called to fight, we're going to see the same faces with us. The British Army has been our teammate for a long time. You all know that success in battle comes down to tough, disciplined soldiers who have trained together in the rain and the cold and who take the initiative to accomplish the mission. One of my favorite leaders from history is Churchill. He was I think, a uniquely courageous man who faced incredible choices. And you have to wonder if today we aren't collectively facing a Churchillian moment. I do think there are flashing red lights in the world all around us, requiring us to make difficult choices and move with a greater sense of urgency. As partners, we are making a lot of momentum. I just went out to Project Convergence with Patrick a couple of months ago to see our teams in action. And what used to take us days to coordinate is now only taken minutes and sometimes only seconds. We're also making great headway on AUKUS Pillar 2. We just signed recently a statement of intent with us and with Simon Stewart, the Australian Army Chief, and I think it sets a clearer path of collaboration for battle-winning capabilities. But I think there's more that our collective teams need to do. First, we need to make sure that we are prepared to warfight at scale. Second, we need to be ready for the sustainment challenges of the future battlefield. The complexity and span of the battlefield is going to stress everyone. Every teammate must be prepared to get their formations to the fight and sustain them there. So if you commit a division, be able to support a division. And third, we must ensure that we are interoperable across the team. On the future battlefield, we won't have time to spend getting our systems to work. We're going to have to be ready to plug and play. Again, I'm grateful, Matthew and the entire RUSI team for having me here, and I'm looking forward to the questions.